foundation that all of us can stand on. Tonight, we are here to hear his message on the campaign for 2024. And I ask all of you to join me to welcome John Dramani Mahama to this evening's presence with you, ladies and gentlemen from the media. Good evening.
Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I'm happy to be with you. I know what the importance of encounters like this are. You are the vehicle that we have to use to send our message out to the people. So I'm very happy that you responded to our call at relatively short notice. But let me thank you, Joyce Bawa Muktari, my spokesperson, who also happens to be a relative, for your kind introduction. And I say good evening to you, all my colleagues in the field of media and communications, and to you, the millions watching and listening from across our country and the world at large. We are at a crucial moment in our nation's history with 153 days to the next presidential and parliamentary elections. 2 years ago in 2022, right here in this same auditorium, in my prophetic address to the nation, I submitted to the government and to all Ghanaians that Ghana was at a crossroads. That speech has been called the crossroads speech. Unfortunately, the government refused to listen to that altruistic conversation and the raft of viable and innovative policy proposals that I offered to them that evening. 2 years on, our country is in the worst state. In between the period, I have been having a series of innovative conversations with you, conversations that do not talk down or talk at Ghanaians, truthful and honest, continuous conversation that admit that our nation is in peril. Because Ghanaians have victory in our DNA, I know that despite these perils, we can overcome our difficulties. Let me thank you for your presence this evening for my first major media encounter ahead of the December 2024 elections. In addition to my digital conversations, I intend to have a number of such media engagements, not only in Accra, but in other parts of the country. As I have done when I was president, I passionately believe in transparency and accountability and engagements with the fourth estate of the Rim. These have always been an effective way to reach our citizenry. And this is why I'm happy today to be with you again to sustain the conversations about our dear nation, Ghana. And do not worry, the media encounters and my virtual engagements will not deny you the opportunity to catch me for one-on-one interviews, either in your studios or whenever we meet at events. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time for change. The time for change has come. And it is not just a slogan, but a clarion call to the heart and soul of our nation. This is a time for change because of the urgent need for a transformative shift in the way we govern, the way we create jobs, the way we live, the way we provide social services, including health and education, and the way we envision the future of our dear country, Ghana. After almost 8 years under the deplorable leadership of the Akufo-Addo and Bawumia administration, we have seen our country sink into a serious economic abyss. The current economic mess sums up the verdict on this NPP administration. The harsh reality is that for most citizens, the piteous journey over the period has been a very bitter experience of economic and social deprivation. The unprecedented levels of poverty, unemployment, deterioration in our people's livelihoods, and social inequity have exposed the dubious strategy of hiding incompetence under sloganeering. It confirms without hesitation that the disruptive and hasty experimentation with the lives of the Ghanaian people was underpinned by a naive exuberance, arrogance, and indeed selfishness. And I'm referring to the economic challenges that have shattered the dreams of our youth and the aspirations of the vulnerable in our society. No one has been spared, not children, not adults, including the middle class and the elderly have all been hit very hard. And I dare say, even you, the media, have not been spared. Fellow Ghanaians, and that's a very famous refrain, fellow Ghanaians. Notwithstanding these challenges, I am imbued with optimism and a steadfast belief in my God Almighty and the amazing creativity of the Ghanaian people to assure you tonight that together we shall turn around this tide. We shall turn this government's destructive tide into positive and progressive waves, waves that will reverberate in every home and corner of our country and across the globe, demonstrating that Ghana has once again gotten back on track. Let me give you 5 good and solid reasons why we shall reset Ghana and turn the tide. 1 is experience. Unlike any other candidate, I have navigated Ghana through tough economic waters before. My presidency was marked by significant infrastructure development, building economic buffers for inclusive growth while ensuring macroeconomic stability. I understand the intricacies of national crisis management and possess the proven experience to reset Ghana from the economic challenges that we face today. The second point is visionary leadership for economic revival. My vision for Ghana is rooted in sustainable development. I'll focus on revitalizing our economy for job creation through industrialization, enhancing agriculture, and ensuring the efficient use of our natural resources. My administration will introduce cross-cutting innovative policies that are inclusive, growth-oriented, and capable of restoring hope back to our youth. And the third point is commitment to job creation. Recognizing that our youth are the backbone of this nation, my government will prioritize and create decent, well-paying, and sustainable jobs by fostering a conducive environment for entrepreneurship and innovation. The government and the private sector will not only tackle unemployment, but also inspire a generation of change makers and problem solvers. And the fourth point is championing social justice and equality. I wholeheartedly believe in a Ghana where every citizen, regardless of their background or gender, has equal opportunities to thrive. Under my leadership, social interventions and educational reforms will be strengthened. The vulnerable in our society will be protected and given the opportunity to change their circumstances. And let me add that gender equality will be a cardinal feature of the Mahama Jenano Opoku-Agyeman and Flagstaff House. Would lead an administration that promotes gender inclusivity in every government policy. And that is why we propose to establish a National Women's Bank to empower women to close the gender gap financially. 1 million women will benefit from the Women's Bank to finance their small and medium-scale businesses. And the fifth point is a call to national unity. Ghana's strength lies in its diversity. The polarization and partisan politics that have characterized the current administration's tenure should have no place in Ghana. As president, I'll foster a spirit of national cohesion, encouraging all Ghanaians to contribute towards nation building, regardless of their political, religious, or ethnic affiliation. To the youth of Ghana, I say, I understand your frustration and your disillusionment. Many of you are feeling very frustrated. I can relate to the recent cynicism and massive mistrust you have in our body politics because the current government has been undeserving of your trust. The challenges of today might seem insurmountable, but I urge you to look beyond the present and dream with me of a reset Ghana. The Ghana we all want, where your talents and hard work will determine your success. I promise a Ghana where you are not sidelined, but at the forefront of change, where you can live happy lives and still achieve your optimum potential. This is not just a promise, it's a commitment. I will reset the economy and Ghana will be open for business for 24 hours a day. Leadership is about vision. And the 24-hour economy is the vision to create decent and well-paying jobs. When I talk about a 24-hour economy, we need to understand the underlying vision behind that policy. The 24-hour economy is the means to an end, and the end is putting Ghana on a solid foundation for accelerated growth and development. We need to attain the growth rhythm that will turn our country into a developed economy and eliminate the abject levels of poverty we are witnessing today. An economy that will manufacture many of its needs, including food and beverages, drugs, clothing, and more, such that we can address the exchange rate volatilities due to needless imports. The world is moving very fast. We need to keep up with this new rhythm. So first, think of the 24-hour economy as an accelerator, the best accelerator or catalyst we could possibly have. A 24-hour economy will increase the production and distribution of goods and services and accelerate the economic exchanges between people and companies. And with that, we will start growing at an unprecedented pace while providing decent jobs for our young people. As I've said, leadership is about vision, and I stand by it. But leadership is also about caring. It's about giving people genuine, solid hope. And this is what the 24-hour economy is really about. And let me explain further. The 24-hour economy is a solid way to replace imports with homegrown production of goods, and thus create a solid base for a vibrant Ghanaian industry. In many instances, we don't import goods because they are better than what we produce. We import them because nobody produces them here in Ghana in the first place, or because our local production is insufficient. Therefore, the stimulus packages for companies wanting to participate in the 24-hour economy will convince businesses, and I'm sure of it, to start producing import substitutes. And do you know why? Because the market for such products already exists. If the market did not exist, we will not be importing to satisfy demand. And so through the 24-hour economy, businesses will be incentivized to start producing for this market. It is the simplest way to start growing sustainably. And when this begins to happen, imagine the number of new jobs that will be created. And here's another thing about the 24-hour economy. It will boost exports. Many Ghanaian companies still will start looking for foreign partners to develop their businesses to take advantage of the new opportunities available to them via this policy. Indeed, thanks to the African Continental Free Trade Area, these partnerships will open new foreign markets to Ghanaian companies. And goods produced in Ghana will then be exported to other parts of our continent, to Asia, to Europe, or North America, using the connections of these foreign partners that we have had. And as I've said before, I will personally chair an accelerated exports development program that will identify and promote exports in the manufacturing, agricultural products, textiles, food and beverages, pharmaceuticals, and the extractive sectors. It is important to understand that the 24-hour economy will generate a network of foreign markets for Ghanaian entrepreneurs and will transform Ghana into an export-led economy. So I say that the 24-hour economy is also about national pride. It is about creating jobs through enhanced productivity, connecting Ghana with the wider world, and making companies proud of what they can accomplish here. Once the policy is set in motion, the rhythm of growth will start to accelerate exponentially, and Ghana will be open for business again. This initiative will anchor my determination to change the structure of the Ghanaian economy through the active support of private sector-led growth. And so be assured that the 24-hour economic policy initiative is a well-thought-through, data-driven, evidence-based, and comprehensive policy to expand critical and strategic segments of our economy sustainably, and it will liberate Ghana from the shackles of unemployment and economic dependence. And so, governance and fighting corruption for development. I am committed to drastically reducing the size of government, and rightly so. This government has sufficiently proven to Ghanaians that with over 120 ministers and deputy ministers, all they could offer was to run our economy aground. I will run a lean, highly effective and efficient government of no more than 60 ministers and deputy ministers. And this is solid proof of my genuine commitment to curbing government expenditure. This leaner government will be the cleanest government Ghana has ever experienced. It will serve Ghanaians far better and set higher standards for future governments. What we have now can obviously never and should never be a yardstick for governance. My goal is to launch a renewed fight against corruption. I'll keep my appointees in check, and Ghanaians can be assured that drastic steps will be taken to punish the corrupt officials and their accomplices in this present administration. No actor in this NPP corruption enterprise will be spared. We'll also take action to repossess what has been unlawfully stolen from the Ghanaian people. As we all know, government procurement is a significant source of corruption, and no economy can sustain inclusive and equitable social and economic well-being with the penchant for public service holders to be self-serving and corrupt, as is currently the case. The use of public finances will always be compliant with our national laws, transparent, justified by contemporary value for money tests, and solely in the interest of the broader citizens. If we want to eliminate corruption, we must increase accountability in government procurement processes. And accountability gives power back to the people. God willing, as the incoming president and leader, I assure the people of Ghana that the NDC is fully committed to accountability. And this is why one of our key policies will be to set up an independent value for money office to scrutinize all government procurements above $5 million threshold, or as shall be recommended by Parliament. Transparency and accountability are the keys to fighting corruption, and we'll fight corruption by creating an office that will dynamically scrutinize all government procurements, coupled with a lean government of no more than 60 ministers and deputies. And I guarantee you that we will come out victorious in this fight against corruption. Developing the agriculture and agribusiness sector with specialized zones in all regions with support from the farmer service centers and Exim Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, some people say agriculture belongs to poor people. But I say agriculture can generate significant wealth and employment. We live in a world crippled by the ever-increasing effects of climate change. And in this uncertain and sometimes volatile world, food security becomes a strategic issue. To put it simply, we cannot even begin to think about transforming Ghana if we don't put the right focus on agriculture. We cannot be successful in anything we do if we do not first put food on the table at an affordable cost for our people. Agriculture is the cornerstone of growth. Ignoring it is like trying to build a house without a foundation. The slightest storm will bring that house down. Without reliable access to affordable and nutritious food in sufficient quantity, growth and development are impossible. So I don't look at agriculture as an occupation for the poor. I look at it as the very basis of our future. The simplest way to achieve food security is to produce food locally. If you produce food locally, you are not dependent on imports. And so you can still feed the people even if international distribution chains are broken. We won't have to go to other countries begging for grain if we get things right. This is the food security strategy I'm fighting for, and this is why I'm looking at farmers, fishermen, and other protein producers as strategic partners in building the Ghana we want, a modern, vibrant, thriving Ghana. Others may look down on agriculture, but I don't, because I'm a farmer myself. I see farmers as my close brothers and sisters because of their strategic importance in helping Ghana become a true black star not only of Africa, but of the world. Farmers and fishers inspire me, and I hope that I will inspire them too. And let me just share 3 examples of the policies we will implement as soon as we form the next government. I said already that we shall establish special agro-industrial zones in the 16 regions of our country to add value to local crops they have a comparative advantage to produce, and thereby boost exports and reduce raw material imports. Secondly, we shall create opportunities for farmers to improve food security and bolster economic growth through the establishment of farmer service centers across the country. This will be enhanced by well-established farmers' cooperatives, advanced farming techniques, modern digital tools, and the promotion of agribusiness. And the third, we will launch a program similar to the Operation Feed Yourself and Industries program of the early 1970s to make Ghana self-sufficient in basic staples and curb unnecessary imports of things that we have a comparative advantage to produce. All 3 policies exemplify to the highest degree my vision of agriculture as the cornerstone of our future growth. True leadership, like I said, is about vision and about empowering the people to live that vision. Now I turn to digital youth. Let's face it, the digital revolution is here to stay. It has already transformed our lives in ways that were simply unpredictable only a few decades ago, and it will continue to do so. Around the world and here in Ghana, we now have digitized factories and even digital agriculture. This is the 4th industrial revolution. Indeed, the 5th industrial revolution, the cognitive age that brings human and machine intelligence into close proximity for sustainable growth, beckons us. And the sooner we embrace it, the more prosperous our nation will become. And this is why I'm a true and firm believer in the right to affordable and reliable internet for all our citizens. I believe that currently everybody should have access to internet connectivity. You may remember that 4 years ago, I promised Ghanaians that if elected president, I'll provide them with universal and affordable internet access. This promise still stands because my vision of a digital Ghana is as strong as ever. It is a vision that led me as president to deploy massive fixed and wireless broadband for reliable internet across our country, and it remains an undying vision. We need to be young in mind and in spirit. And this is a fabulous time in history, a time which we must be bold, create, and take advantage of the huge opportunities the digital world, particularly the digital economy, affords us. And so based on this vision of a new, vibrant digital Ghana, the next NDC government under my administration will partner with local tech startups and businesses to launch a digital jobs initiative to create at least 300,000 skilled employment opportunities for the youth in this sector. And so imagine this, 300,000 employment opportunities for our young people. And this is the field that they not only love, but they often excel at. I look at my children, my nieces and my nephews, and I'm amazed at their digital skills, as I'm sure many parents in Ghana are. So I'm telling you, like I tell everybody else, let these kids thrive. They are our future, so let them build this future. It will be glorious, I promise you. All they need from us is our support and understanding. And I promise all of them my full support and my wholehearted understanding. My dearest young Ghanaians, I stand by you 100% and I always will. When we talk about the digital revolution, we also need to talk about the digital divide, about those who are being left behind. On my watch, I'll do whatever it takes to provide universal access and bridge the digital divide in this country. We must close that digital gap. The NDC promised you this, and it was in our 2020 manifesto, that we shall train 1 million coding professionals in demand of digital skills for growth, business process outsourcing, and knowledge process outsourcing ecosystems, ensuring that no one is left behind in this digital revolution. 1 million coders. I mean, just think about it. And I believe we can do it. And this is our plan. It is our pledge to you. And no Ghanaian will be left behind in this digital revolution. Let me also assure the sports fraternity that we shall develop our stadium infrastructure for track and field sports. We'll fix the deteriorating football pitches and pay stipends to footballers in the Premier League like we promised in 2020. What we call the lesser known sports shall also receive equitable attention like we give soccer. And I have good news for the creative industry. Our overarching policy for the industry shall be the Black Star experience. And this will be geared towards boosting the tourism and creative arts sector. It will include the Pan-African Month, the Ghana Film Festival and Awards Month, the Ghanaian Heritage and History Month, the Fashion and Food Month, and the Diasporan Month. Additionally, we'll rehabilitate all our regional centers of national culture and make them available to the creative industry. We'll also support aging artists who many of whom currently live in poverty. My colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, together we shall overcome. Together we shall reset the narrative and restore Ghana to its rightful place among the Community of Nations. The time for change has come. The time to change this non-performing, corrupt government is now. Let us seize this moment to build the Ghana we want together for a brighter future for our children and for generations yet to come. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. And I'd like to stop here and invite you to ask your questions so that we can continue the conversation about the many other issues I have left out for now. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
And thank you, Your Excellency, for that insightful speech. And thank you for doing this at this time, at a time when duty bearers are refusing to engage the media like this and to open themselves up for questioning. You have not only decided to engage the media, the fourth estate of the realm, but to open yourself up for questions on various issues of national interest. We salute your commitment to transparency and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for His Excellency. Now, friends from the media, it is time for questions and answers. And I'm going to be moderating this segment. I know you all came here prepared with your questions, but for the sake of the efficient management of time, we need to agree to some ground rules. Only media men are allowed to ask questions. Every media man in this room or woman in this room has the right to ask only one question. We will take questions in sets of 5 questions. Kindly keep your questions and the foundations for same, crisp, and straight to the point. I know you shall cooperate with us. And so, if you have a question for His Excellency, can I see you by hand? Okay, I can see. Well, before I start calling you out, forgive me, let's give honor to whom honor is due. I know we have the GJ here, represented by the executives and led by their president. So, Mr. President, I'll give you the first bite. And then, so you can be at your position. A microphone will be brought to you there, and then you ask your question from. But because he's the GJ president, we'll give him the opportunity to ask 2 questions.
Thank you, Sami, and thank you, His Excellency. I can't ask questions without commenting on this wonderful event. His Excellency, the former President, John Dramani Mahama, on behalf of the National Executive of the Ghana Journalists Association, on behalf of the Ndc fraternity, we want to thank you for this wonderful opportunity to deliberate on matters of national interest. I also extend same warm greetings to every one of us here. This media encounter with the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, His Excellency former President John Dramani Mahama, is crucial because it further deepens our democracy, and more importantly, it gives the media the opportunity to scrutinize the vision and programs of someone seeking to occupy the highest office in the land once again. At this juncture, the GJ would like to commend former President Mahama for availing himself once again of scrutiny as he outlines his visions and programs for the country. We hope that the former president continues on this path if he wins the election, so it will not be a 9-day wonder. I want to state that the former president is still a member of the GJ in good standing, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
We indeed appreciate that. Yes. The GJ has the core mandate to ensure that journalists and media houses get the freedom to operate by holding government and society accountable. We are also duty-bound to ensure the welfare of hardworking journalists. Therefore, I'll focus my brief questions on press freedom and the welfare of journalists. Press freedom. Your Excellency, the safety of journalists is one of the most critical issues that the GJ wants you to address if you win the upcoming election. In recent times, attacks on journalists and media houses have been on the rise, with some media personnel sustaining severe injuries. The situation was getting out of hand until we started blacklisting some high-profile personalities. One unfortunate aspect of this situation is the lack of political actors condemning attacks on journalists. The GJ believes that if influential individuals, including presidential candidates like your humble self, condemn such attacks, the issue will diminish. These attacks contributed to our poor performance on the World Press Freedom Index. This is something we need to work on. I must say that this year, our performance of the Press Freedom Index improved due to the blacklisting measures we instituted.
Yeah, Mr. President, still waiting
now
for
the question.
Yes.
We want to ask, Mr. President, to enhance press freedom in this country, we are demanding amendment of certain provisions of the Electronic Communications Act and the Criminal Code, specifically Section 208 of the Criminal and Other Offences Act of 1960. This arbitrary application of the laws only instills fear in the media and the public. We want to ask, should Mr. Mahama ascend to the presidency, what steps will he take to amend these objectionable laws? I want to state that even though these laws were not meant for journalists, we've ended up being the target, and many of our colleagues have suffered under them. This is certainly a step backward, especially after the repeal of the Criminal Libel Act 20 years ago. Now, Mr. President, or former President, it is widely known, Mr. Former President, that the salaries of journalists, particularly those in the state-owned media, are significantly low. It is sad to know that this issue of poor salaries for journalists has contributed to a low ranking on the Press Freedom Index. If the NDC flag bearer becomes president, what will his government do about the low salaries of journalists working in especially?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for these brilliant questions. Yes, I will take the next question from, I see Simon of Accra Times. Yes, can you bring the microphone here? Yes.
Oh, thank you. Is it on? Hello. Thank you very much. My name is Simon Agena, the editor of the Accra Times and the Dean of the Parliamentary Press Corps. Thank you for this opportunity. Your Excellency, as you are aware that the depreciation of the cedi is affecting businesses in this country. Please, I would like to know from you, how are you going to stabilize the exchange rate? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next question. I'll go here. Komala Kluche. Middle lane, Komala Kluche. Please kindly speak into the mic.
Komala Kluche is my name. I work at Media General. There's excruciating hardship in the country. We have seen you lament on same. How do you intend solving this? But whilst at this, can you believe in Ghana? We are building a house to house the vice president, and it's supposed to cost 13.9 million US dollars. This is located at the Switchback Road. Your government at the time said it cost 5.9 million US dollars. The VP currently, Dr. Baumia, said they would have to do some renegotiation with the contractor. What do you intend to do about the weed-infested house supposed to house your VIP, so to speak?
Thank you very much, Komala. Kafuide, I'll give you the... Okay.
Thank you very much.
I've seen you, so relax.
Yeah, Kafuide, GTV. Mr. President, if you watch GTV tomorrow morning, you will see a bottle of orange water on my desk. It's not juice. It's from the river. I personally fetched that water. Galamsey is ravaging our environment. It's polluting our waters. It's destroying the farms. You were talking about agriculture and the fact that if we don't have food to eat, everything will be meaningless. I want to know what your plan is to deal with illegal mining, aka Galamsey.
Thank you for your question. The masculinity has been too much, so let's go for a female voice. Nima from Ghana Web.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Your Excellency, please, I would like to find out from you what's your position on free SHS, given that, and also what is your thoughts on the proposal to pass the free SHS bill, given that the majority has hinted the bill will be coming to Parliament?
Thank you very much, Nima. So this brings us to the end of the first set, the free SHS bill. So this brings us to the end of the first set of 5. His Excellency will deal with these 5 and then we'll come back again. We're doing this till 10 p.m. So relax, you get the opportunity to ask your question. Your Excellency, we are ready for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your questions and also your commendation. This will not be a 90 wonder. Everybody knows that when I was president, I held media encounters, every year of my presidency. It's not been the same under this government. They've run away from the searing accountability to the media. We all know that Chapter 12 of our Constitution is on press freedom. And it has been one of the most progressive constitutions that any African country can have, because it gives wide-ranging freedoms to the media to be able to do its work, and principally to carry out their role as the watchdogs of the people, not as the guard dogs of government. Some of us have abdicated that role, and instead of being the watchdogs of the people, we have been the guard dogs of government, savaging people who question and try to hold government accountable. So we must take note of that. Safety of journalists is important. And I must say that in this last administration, journalists have felt more afraid. They have felt more cowed. Many journalists have been harassed. They have been forced to flee the country. I remember a journalist had to run to South Africa and stay there for some time to let things cool off before he returned. Another journalist in the Upper East region who questioned some issues to do with illegal mining also had to run away from the region for fear that he was going to be assaulted or harmed. I remember Ahmed Swali and his murder, assassination, which up till today, government does not seem to have the political will to let the investigations go forward and bring the people who did this to justice. As long as these people are not brought to justice, the possibility exists that they can do something similar in the future. And so these are things that we take seriously. And my track record when I was president is there for everybody to see, that because I'm a colleague of yours, my training is in the media, and so I can empathize with the work you do. And so definitely you can be sure that as president, I'm not going to condone or conspire to harass journalists when they do the work that the Constitution has mandated them to do. We're willing to sit with you and look at any laws that are in contradiction with the Constitution. The Constitution is the overarching law of our country. And so if there are any laws that are punitive and constrain the media from doing its work, they are laws that we can look at and we can amend if necessary. The low salaries are not only the state-owned media, they are even worse in the private media. They are even worse in the private media. And so it's something that we need to attend to. The thing about media is that it is driven mostly by adverts. Unfortunately, things have gotten worse because businesses are suffering currently. The budget for advertising has shrunk. And also because of the number of media that we have, dividing that little budget amongst the media makes it difficult to be able, for the media owners to be able to guarantee bigger salaries. And so even in turning our economic fortunes around and bringing the private sector back onto the path of growth and growing our economy would create a bigger pot for us to be able to give more advertising to media houses so that they can improve the salaries of media people. But in the meantime, if you remember, we set up a media development fund. There were a few challenges at the time, and so we put it in abeyance for the meantime. But I think there is something that we can look at again. Set up a media development fund. Government puts seed money into it. It was meant to improve training of journalists. It was meant to attend to welfare of journalists and so on and so forth. And so it's something that we are willing to reactivate. And together with the GJA and all the other media umbrella groups, we'll sit down and see how this media development fund can inure to the benefit of people in the media space. And so those are all things that we are willing to look at. The other question was...
So on the exchange rates.
Yeah, on the exchange rates. The immediate issue with the exchange rate and the economy is that the best signal Ghanaians can send to both domestic and international investors is that we're ready to change the current trajectory on which we are. I think that if we hold a successful election, we demonstrate to the world and our people that we are willing to change this trajectory on which we are, that is leading us further into the abyss. It will restore confidence in the economy. That in itself will send a signal that stabilizes the foreign exchange. Currently, nobody has hope in where we're going. And so people are hedging because of the rate of deterioration of the value of the cedi. People are hedging for other foreign currencies. And when it happens like that, then it puts further pressure on the currency. And so we would instill fiscal discipline, because eventually the main driver of the economy is fiscal discipline and fiscal consolidation. And so if you only want to ramp up revenues, but you're not willing to cut expenditures, then you have a situation where your budget deficit is out of kilter. And as you know, we had a budget deficit that went as high as 50 2-year GDP. And unless we instill fiscal discipline pressure on our currency, it's like a household budget. You cannot spend more than you earn. And that is what this government has been. spending more money than they earn, borrowing more money than they can afford to pay. And that is what has, created the situation in which we are. So we must reduce the deficit, we must instill fiscal discipline, we must reduce the debt burden, and already there is a debt restructuring going on. And so we must continue the debt restructuring, but make sure that we put in the buffers so that we don't fall into this situation again. In my administration, we set up what we call the sinking fund, and we capped the stabilization fund. So any excess money that was above what should go to the stabilization fund went into the sinking fund. We also committed other revenues into the sinking fund so that we could anticipate debts that were becoming due and pay them. This government came and depleted the sinking fund and did not replenish it. And that is how come that we are in the crisis in which we currently are. And so replace the sinking fund, create more buffers so that the economy is more resilient to shocks. The thing about the world is it's unpredictable and shocks will come. But it is how resilient your economy is that will make you be able to come out of the shocks. We all went into the shock together with Côte d'Ivoire. Today our economy is so battered and bruised. And Côte d'Ivoire's economy is much more stable. And I just saw a video of the president waxing lyrical about Côte d'Ivoire in 2016. Today, I don't think he wants to hear that comparison because inflation is lower in Côte d'Ivoire, far lower, single digit. And our inflation is at 25%. It went as high as 54%. And so discipline is important. But apart from that, part of the reason we're suffering is the collapse of the cocoa sector. Cocoa has been a traditional pillar of this economy. And when I was leaving office, we did a syndication, cocoa syndication of $1.8 billion. The banks had confidence in this country. And so they gave us $1.8 billion upfront to put in the cocoa industry. And this syndication has been going on over the years. Currently, the last syndication we did, we struggle to even make $800 million. I don't think we've received $800 million for the syndication. And so that injection of foreign currency that was predictable and sure that used to come into the country every year helped to stabilize the foreign exchange. Today, the cocoa industry is a pale shadow of itself. And so one of the things in the medium term is to revamp the cocoa industry as quickly as possible and make sure that its impact in terms of foreign currency injection is revived. Aside from that, we need to quicken our pace in the oil and gas sector. All of you have heard of the transition to green energy. It is real, it is happening. And so every country that has an oil and gas industry is putting in the maximum investment in order not to have what we call stranded assets. You will have the oil wells, but if that transition is completed, nobody will be interested in putting money to recover that crude oil and gas. These 8 years have been wasted completely. In my time, in 4 years, I worked tooth and nail to bring 2 new oil wells into production. If you look at the 10 years of oil production, from 2010 when we started oil production till 2016 when I left office, we have earned about $3.3 billion from our share of oil production. In the 8 years, that's because of the work I did to bring 2 new oil wells, in the 8 years that Nanado and Baumia have been in office, Ghana has earned $7.3 billion. And so in total, over 10 years, over the period from 2010 till now, we have earned about 10 billion. 7 point something of it in Baumia and Akufo-Addo's time, and 3 point something of it in Professor Mills and my time. For the last 8 years, nothing has happened in our oil industry. Not a single drop of oil has been added. Unfortunately, our production of oil has reduced by 32%. And so we're producing less. So one of the things we'll do is to quicken and attract the oil companies to come back. As I speak, E&I have run away to Côte d'Ivoire because of the unfavorable environment here. ExxonMobil was going to do significant work here. Because of greed, ExxonMobil decided to pull out because they thought the environment was toxic and corrupt, and so they pulled out. So one of the things is to restore investor confidence in the oil field, and there are oil fields and compartments that have been appraised that are just waiting to begin production. And so revamping them and ramping up our oil production and gas will bring in the needed foreign exchange that will help to shore up our currency. But we must also look at getting more from our extractives. We have bauxite, we have gold, we have lithium, we have manganese, we have so many other minerals. We will work to make sure that Ghana's share of those extractives is increased so that we can have more foreign currency coming into our country. We produce gold, but because it's not streamlined, a lot of that gold is leaking out and individuals are making the profit instead of the country making it. And so we'll streamline the extractives so that we're able to earn more money. The Vice President's residence, I don't know what the current situation is, but I know that initially when we commenced the idea of creating a suitable residence for the Vice President, the former Nigerian High Commission land was acquired for that purpose. And I know that some construction took place there. Initially, our cabinet was informed that it will cost about $5 million, from what I understand. And so that money was procured and the work commenced. When the new government came, I understand, I don't know exactly what figure, but they said that it had overrun the $5 million. I don't know exactly by how much. But it's news to me that it is going to cost $30 million. I haven't seen the figures and all, but really, I wonder if we have value for money. And that's why I say that in our anti-corruption fight, we will subject any project above $5 million to value for money audit. Because until you audit that project, you can't tell whether it is worth the value for the money we're putting in. And so when we come, we'll look at the figures and we'll do an audit and see whether, yes, 30 million is what is appropriate or it should cost far less. But in these crisis times, one wonders whether that project is really a priority. Because when I was president, the Vice President lived in what is currently called the Australia House. And the intention was to finish this and move him there. But in the crisis, maybe it is not something that we should rush to finish. There are many other pressing commitments that we need to look at. But like I said, when we come into office, we'll do a value for money audit and find out whether we're spending more or less. Galamsey is a problem of compliance. We have all the laws. We have everything. It's the enforcement that is the problem. And the enforcement is a problem because those who should be enforcing it are part of the problem. Today, DCs and ministers all have small-scale concessions, and I indulge in Galamsey. And that's why I said, any person who serves in my government, if you want to be a small-scale gold miner, go and be a small-scale gold miner. If you're a DCE, be a small-scale gold miner. Don't take public office under my administration. And so we're not going to countenance having any of our ministers or our political appointees involved in small-scale gold mining so that we can enforce the laws properly. And what are the suggestions we've given? One, we know the districts where mining takes place. We will open an office of all the agencies that oversee the mining sector in those districts. There must be a Minerals Commission office in every district where gold mining is taking place, so that enforcement and compliance can be right at the doorsteps of the industry in the particular district. The Environmental Protection Agency, there must be an EPA office in every district where mining is taking place. And we have universities that are producing young graduates. UNER is one in Sunyani, UMAT is the other in Takwa. These young graduates are geologists, they are environmental protection specialists. They have a lot of experience when it comes to gold mining. And so we're saying that we're going to identify the concessions and who hold the concessions. And we're going to employ these young people to work with the companies that legitimately own the concessions so that they can guide them in how to do proper mining. We're going to ban mining in forest reserves. As for that, it's non-negotiable. the law that was amended to allow people to go into forest reserves, the law that was amended to let people enter forest reserves to do mining will be re-amended to stop it. Because the figures I'm getting are frightening. And that is why the climate change is real, because our dry seasons are getting harsher. We used to have 365 days rainfall in the western region. Today it is not so, because all the forest reserves have been invaded by mining companies. And it's insightful that in the past, somebody who was supposed to protect the forest, he himself eventually was known to own about 2 or 3 mining companies that had been given permission to go into forest reserves. I think that those trees, some of them 700 years old, some of them older than Ghana, older than our ancestors, are more important than the gold that lie underneath them. And the point is, if we cut all the trees, we will be leaving a barren land to our children and grandchildren. We don't want the forest zone to become the savannah zone. We must protect those trees and rebuild those forest reserves. So we would stop the mining in forest reserves. The question about
free SHS.
Yeah, free SHS bill. I support any bill that will improve our education. 1, to make it sustainable. 2, to afford quality education for our children. And so any bill that would achieve this is something that I'll support. I haven't seen the bill, and I don't think that it has been subjected yet to stakeholder consultation. But we would want to see the bill, and I'm sure that when Cabinet has approved it, it will be laid in Parliament. And when it's laid in Parliament, as a parliamentarian, the normal action is to refer it to the committee responsible. And I'm hoping that when that bill is referred to the committee responsible, it will do the proper stakeholder consultation so that we all can be on board. Because if you're making fundamental changes to our educational system, I think that parents, teachers, and everybody who has a stake in education must be involved. I don't know, we're just hearing rumors, and as long as we haven't seen the bill, you cannot say if they are authentic or not, but I think some of the things I've heard is to fuse the JHS and the SHS together. That is a very fundamental move. And so if you're going to do that, what will the impact be? What do teachers say? What do parents say? What do students say? What do all the stakeholders in the industry say? There are rumors that BEC will be cancelled, and so it's just rumors we've heard. Until we see the bill itself, we cannot make any determination. But like I said, I will support any bill that goes to improve quality and sustainability of our free SHS. Thank you.
But Your Excellency, she also wanted to know what your position on free SHS is.
My position on free SHS?
Aside the bill, yes.
My position on free SHS is known. In 2015, I launched progressive free SHS. That's what the Constitution says. The only difference between us and MPP is the approach. We thought that we should put the infrastructure in place and we should do the necessary preparation to absorb the free SHS. And so we started with day students. We made it free for day students. And in the second year, we absorbed 120,000 students on the free SHS. Nanado himself lauded me. It's there in the media. Just if I had my phone here, I would Google it. He said, Nanado lauds Mahama's free SHS. It's there. UNESCO, congratulated us for launching the free SHS. How can a person who launched free SHS be against free SHS? And so it's a political gimmick that is played by our opponents. Free SHS has come to stay. And nobody can roll it back. All we're saying is, let's improve the implementation. Let's take away the bottlenecks. Let's work to abolish the fast track. Let's be able to feed the children better by decentralizing the school feeding, the free SHS school feeding program. So those are all the kinds of initiatives we're thinking about. But we can only take that decision if we come together as stakeholders and discuss freely the challenges that it faces. Today, there is not the environment for a free discussion of free SHS. Ask any teacher or headmaster. If they make comments adverse to the conditions and implementation of free SHS, they are either sacked or they are transferred to Siberia. And so we must change that. We must free them to be able to come up and talk about it and discuss free SHS and how we can improve it. My commitment is to improve it. And so that political gimmick, if he comes, he will cancel free SHS. And I've seen some Osofutu going around and repeating the same thing. I don't know if he's, I don't know who he is, but he's also gone around repeating that same tired, hackneyed, political propaganda. I am committed to free SHS. I was the one who launched free SHS in this country, and free SHS has come to stay.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going for the second round. Aniampofo, my good brother Shadov is also here. So kindly bring the microphone here. I see Miss Ami here. I see Kwame Menka. Then I'll take 2 here, so that will be 6. So let's start with Aniampofo of Metro TV. Kwame, you're seated at the wrong place. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President. So my first, I'm limited to 1. All right.
Annie, can you increase your volume?
Okay, 24-hour economy. So if you check the global countries that are practicing 24-hour economy, it includes USA, Canada, France, UK, Singapore, and the rest, Germany. All those countries are in the Western developed world. I'm just wondering, I checked the statistics with the France implementation, and I think one of their cardinal challenges has to do with labor. So they are largely relying on imported skilled labor now, and it's a great challenge in that country. And I'm wondering how it came to you that Ghana, being an African country, can practice a 24-hour economy compared to these developed countries, and how are we going to be able to implement it to meet the standard of implementation by developed countries where we are actually not yet?
Thank you very much. I see that Pakwesi, I'll come to you. All of you, I'll come to you. But I see the gentleman by your hand. It's only fair that I allow that gentleman to ask this question. So let's take him. I'll come to you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Felix Nyaba. I work with Express News. Your Excellency, your critics, especially your political opponents, says that you and the NDC cannot boast of any social intervention policies. Will you mind share with us what have you done on this social intervention policies in this country? Thank you.
Shando, bring the microphone to the front. The man in that colorful bow tie. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Pakwesi Shandoff. I work with Wesleyan Television. This is my question. When the NDC won the 2008 elections, they were caused by a section of the party, and indeed, the parties found that for the government of the day to be tougher on past corrupt officials. But it appeared that under the impression of Father for All, your late boss, Professor Mills, was lenient. And indeed, you've also been accused of that same leniency, if I have to put it that way. But years down the line, I'm inclined to ask, have you delivered yourself from that spirit of leniency? And, and if you have, what are the first 3 allegations of corruption that you would probe if elected? I mean, on my paper, there's a plethora of them, but in your books, what are the first 3 that you would probe?
Thank you very much. Let's go to the middle lane. Miss Ami here. Then I'll come to you, Wisdom. I'll come to Wisdom, then we'll go to the fire. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. President. I am Sewami and I work with the EIB network. So, Mr. President, at a gathering of NDC lawyers somewhere in September last year, you urged them to aspire to become judges so that you can appoint them to bring a balance to the judiciary, which you have termed as an NPP-inclined judges. I want to know if you still stand by this position, and if by this you mean that if you become president, you will appoint NDC sympathetic judges or promote them to become judges even at the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wisdom, middle lane. I'll come to the last lane. Okay.
My name is Wisdom Hedejame. I work with the XYZ Broadcasting Limited. Mr. President, clearly you have just one term, and that will make you unaccountable. I remember very well in your interview with the Voice of America, you indicated that one term, which is 4 years, was not enough for any president to make any meaningful impact. So does the position still remain, or can you tell us that would that 4 years be enough for you to fix the economic mess you've been complaining about?
Thank you very much. Let's go to the far end. I see Kwekwe Usweje. I see Sadiq Adams. I'll come to you. So Kwekwe Usweje, stand on your feet so that they can see you. I see Sadiq Adams also there. I'll call you. I've seen all of you, so don't worry.
Thank you very much, Sami. Your Excellency, if elected president, I want to find out what measures, specific measures you would implement to address challenges that were faced by depositors and investors whose monies are locked up as a result of the collapsed financial institutions, including Men's Code.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. So let's take one more there. Okay. There is one just by you, the gentleman who is sitting just by you, yes.
Good evening, Your Excellency. My name is Blessed Sugan. I work with Joy News. Based on your success in the 2024 general elections, you would not just be the executive president of the Republic, you would also be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Your Excellency, there's a professor, Kwesi Enin, who's enjoying support from Imani Africa. They are in court asking the Supreme Court to enforce their interpretation of Article 202 of the Constitution, which will bar any new president from appointing new chiefs for the security agencies, including the IGP. You have a test case if you get to win the elections, which would mean that you have an IGP which is somewhere, who has an age range of 53. Mr. President, what's your personal opinion on, the security of tenure for such persons, and will you be willing to work, for instance, with the current IGP if you're elected president?
Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of this set. We have 6 questions. Your Excellency, we are all ears.
Thank you. And the first question was about the 24-hour economy and the countries that are implementing that policy. Indeed, there are several countries implementing it. And as you said, Ghana would probably be one of the first in Africa to begin the implementation of this policy. It is not new. For those of you who have access to the 40-year development program, which was passed under my administration, the issue of the 24-hour economy was embedded right in there. And it is meant to accelerate our productivity. It is meant to increase opportunities for employment. And so the example you give for most of those European countries is that they have an aging population because birth rates are falling so low. So even as they accelerate their economies with more shifts to increase production, they don't have the labor to be able to service that 24-hour economic policy. We have an abundance of labor. We have young people willing and able to work. And that is the more reason why we even have a better justification to implement the 24-hour economy. But of course, there are people who come and say, oh, but there's 24-hour economy already. There are some businesses that are working 24 hours. Yes, they are doing that by choice. That just a few of them think that they have the capacity to work 24 hours. So it's just by the decision of the owner of the enterprise that he can implement it. It has never ever been a policy in Ghana. So the difference between what they're referring to, that, oh, some companies are running 24 hours, the difference is that we're going to make it a policy, and it's going to have, the guidelines for that policy, and what government can do to encourage more companies to run 24 hours. That is a simple thing. And so if we say we're going to bring a 24-hour economic policy, oh, nasa omo ye dada. But we've never had a policy that regulates and guides how we can incentivize companies to do 24 hours. And I said that one of the things we'll do is give them tax incentives. Because one of the things that adversely obstructs businesses in Ghana is our high taxes. And so if you give some of these companies a tax break, it will encourage them to pump more into production so that they can employ more people. And so that's what we also have the issue of safety. Because if companies are working in the night, you must guarantee that they are safe to work. And that is an obligation of government. You don't expect the companies to go and hire security people to come and guard them so that they can work. Government must make sure that it creates a safe environment for the 24-hour economic policy to work. Aside from that, transportation. We need to provide an efficient transport network so that even in the evening, people who have to go to work can get easy, affordable transport to run. And that's why we imported the Ayalolo buses, which today are parked in some graveyard. They were never utilized. Government said they didn't have the money to implement it. But it was a combination of interest between government and the private sector. And so GPRT and all of them were involved. And it was going to run as a bus rapid transit system so that people could catch buses to and from work at whatever time that they close. And so when we come, we're going to revamp all those bus rapid transit systems and buses. Why the 24-hour economy works in some of the developed countries is at any time of the day or night when you go to a bus stop, you get a bus to transport you to work. And so government has some obligations under the 24-hour economy. There are many places that we can easily change into a 24-hour economy mode. The judiciary announced recently that, judges are going to sit later than they have done. And so it will mean that people have access to justice better than if they sit the normal time that they sit. If you go to the ports, when the ships come, even at night, the cranes are working and offloading the containers. But why can't I go and clear my container at night? Do we need more customs officers? Yes. Must we get more bankers so that we can make our payments and clear our goods even at night? Yes. And so there are things that government can do to make the 24-hour economy possible. Government has its obligations, and we are going to make it a policy so that the private sector can come on board and be able to do so. People talk about demand. The demand is there. We import 3 billion worth of food products every year, and some of these things we can produce ourselves. And so you can't tell me there's no demand. If there was no demand, why are we importing? If there's no demand for vegetable cooking oil, why are we importing vegetable cooking oil? It means that the demand is there. And so if we can increase productivity, we can meet the demand, our domestic demand. But apart from that, we've been giving the advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It says register your brand. As far as I know, Ghana has registered 70 products that it intends to export tariff-free into other countries. We can increase the number of products that we're exporting by increasing demand. We have pharmaceuticals. We have a developed pharmaceutical industry. When I was in government, I gave them money to expand their production. Tobinco, NS Chemist, Dan Adams, all of them. They have the capacity to increase production and work 24 hours, both to feed domestic demand and also for export. And like I've said somewhere else, we're going to use government's financial muscle to help Ghanaian-owned companies, Ghanaian registered companies. Because the market, and I'll give an example, the market for pharmaceutical products, if we give a bias towards Ghanaian-made products, And even if they are marginally more expensive than foreign products, we buy them. We're keeping employment in this country. But if we go and bring those analgesics, we bring those antibiotics, we bring those cough syrups from India and other places, we are exporting jobs to those countries. And so we use government's financial muscle to give an advantage to Ghanaian registered companies so that they can produce more and employ more of our young people. And so that's to do with the 24-hour economy. I've heard this thing said so many times, and I wonder the basis why they say so. The NDC has no social intervention programs. It's the funniest thing I heard. Who brought the District Assembly's Common Fund concept? It was the NDC. We put it in the 1992 Constitution and said 5 to 8% of total government revenue should go directly to the districts for their development. So if you go to your district and the District Assembly has built a school, a KVIP, a nursery, a sports recreation, a community center, it is a social intervention of NDC that has produced that. Who introduced the GET Fund? It's Rawlings, NDC. We passed the GET Fund law. But for the GET Fund, where would our education be? Most of the educational infrastructure in this whole country is being provided through the GET Fund. And so how can you say we haven't introduced social intervention policies? But in any case, what is social intervention policy? Is an action or policy that provides social services or social benefits to the people. And so it's not only GET Fund and other things. We have provided more access to water than any other government in the history of this country. When Professor Mills came into government, access to clean drinking water was 58%. By the time we left office, access to clean drinking water was 76%. For Accra alone, we added 40 million more gallons of water. In 8 years, not 1 gallon has been added. And I hear the Ghana Water Company say, oh, Accra is overgrowing its supply of water. It's overgrowing its supply because in 8 years, you have not added a single gallon to it. You must plan and know what your population growth rate is. And you must continue to put in the capacity to bring in more water. And that's why I'm saying that we took water and brought it in from the northern direction of this country. And so Adenta and other places that had never gotten water for almost 15 years saw their taps flowing for the first time. Today, I'm sure your taps flow twice a week or something. If you don't store water, you will run short. And so we need to invest to bring more water supply, not only to Accra, but to all our growing communities around the country. And so if you are a government and you haven't invested in improving water, definitely access to people will be denied. We've extended electricity more than any government in the history of Ghana. Electricity is a public good. When electricity arrives in a community, it changes the lives of the people very rapidly. People can engage in small-scale enterprises. It was Rawlings who introduced the Rural Electrification Program and the National Electrification Program. And so today, when we say that Ghana has more than 80% access to electricity, it's because the NDC introduced those policies for us to be able to do so. So how can any person say that NDC has not introduced any social intervention? Even the NHIS. NDC started a pilot in Damango and Nkranza for the NHIS. Implementation started in President Kufuor's time. But what President Kufuor introduced was a mutual health insurance scheme. And so your card, your NHIS card, allowed you to access health services only in the district in which you were registered. Today's National Health Insurance Scheme was introduced by Professor Mills. He changed it from a mutual district insurance scheme to a national health insurance scheme so that your card could access healthcare anywhere in Ghana you go. And so I wonder what is giving these people this idea. You know, I can refer to free school uniforms and free sandals. The free school uniform policy was introduced by Professor Mills. I can refer to the free textbooks for basic schools. When Nana Jane, seated here, was minister, she came and met a situation where 3 children had access to 1 textbook. By the time she left office as minister, every child in basic education had access to 4 textbooks of their own. If that is not social intervention, I wonder what else is social intervention. Even let's take progressive free SHS. It's a policy, the free SHS. I launched the free SHS. And so you can't say that we have not had any social intervention. If you talk about the cocoa sector, our policy of free fertilizer and free cocoa inputs and free seedlings changed the lives of the cocoa farmers. And if you remember, when I was leaving office, we did almost 1 million tons of cocoa because of the policy that we had of giving these inputs to the farmers free. If that is not a social intervention, I wonder what else is. That argument must stop. And the point even is, these people have done more harm to social interventions than any other government in history. They capped the NHIS, and apart from that, they starved it of funds. And so most people with an NHIS card today cannot access health services. You go, you get a consultation, there are no drugs, not even analgesics. You go to hospitals and they say they don't accept the NHIS card because the NHIS is not refunding their claims. And it's not refunding their claims because this government has starved the NHIS of money. They've starved the District Assembly's Common Fund of money. The Constitution said 5% to 8%. We were giving District Assemblies 7.5% of national revenue. When this government came, they reduced it to 5%. And the rest they are putting into the consolidated fund to spend at the center. And even the 5% does not come. If you go and ask any district secretary, he will tell you there's no money. They go begging the MPs to let them have access to the money in their district common fund accounts to be able to do even some of the basic things. And so this government is doing more. Get fund, decollateralize Get fund, and spend the money in advance. So Get fund is not able to continue the projects that it is undertaking because the fund has been collateralized. And so this government has done more harm to the existing social interventions than any other government in the history of the country. And so that is my take on that. And then you asked, have I exercised myself of the father for all, the father for all syndrome? My boss, my president, was a special person. He several times said he believed in looking forward and not looking into the past. And so I'm sure that people got away with some of the crimes that they had committed against the people. I became president 4 years later, after President Mills had done his 4 years. I mean, I came into office 5 months before the election. And so when I became president, it was going to be a bit difficult to be investigating things that happened in 2008. And so I said that, look, any allegations of corruption that are made against any public officer, I gave the investigative agencies the free hand to investigate. And so I remember in those times, the National Service investigation, the JIDA scandal, people even forget that I was the one who commissioned the committee of inquiry into JIDA. And all the issues that came up, the report was presented to me as president, and I gave the report to the media. And that is referred back to me as my crime of condoning corruption. The fight against corruption begins with shining sunlight into an area. And that is what I sought to do. And so when we gave the JIDA report to you guys, it was referred to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General began to take action. Some of the people involved went to court to restrain the Attorney General, and the court processes took forever. There were others where there was prosecution of my own colleague and friend, Abu Gapele. The Attorney General put him before court, and he was jailed. It was recently that President Akufo-Addo granted him amnesty. And so their will to fight corruption was there. We even retrieved monies from some of those involved in JIDA. We retrieved as much as 50 million Ghana cedis at the time. And so the track record is there. And I can assure you, if you believe that I was imbued with the Father for All syndrome, it has been exercised. And it's been exercised because it's a demand by the people of Ghana. The people of Ghana are asking for accountability. And we must create a situation where everybody who agrees to serve must know that he will be held accountable to the people. We can't afford to fail. We've seen some things that are happening in other countries. And let's not think that Ghana is immune from that. And I can tell you, our young people are getting frustrated and desperate. And if we don't take drastic action and we think that it's going to be business as usual, we will be shocked at what would happen in this country. And so, it's not my demand, it's not a threat, as Nana Jane said, it is a promise that will hold public officers accountable. And it's not going to be only post-regime accountability. It's easy to prosecute your political opponents when they've left office. But the difficult decision of dealing with your own people when they go wrong, it is what makes you pass the test of the fight against corruption. And we're going to hold our people accountable. And so, I've said it several times, if you get into trouble, I'm not going to be a clearing agent to clear you. If the investigative agencies catch up with you, you are on your own.
All right, sir.
And the appropriate sanctions will be taken. The issue of judges, I believe that our constitution gives the judiciary certain privileges. They are the only arm of government that does not renew its mandates. They don't go for elections to be re-elected as judges. And they're given security of tenure. I think that the obligation and responsibility of every president is to appoint fair-minded people. Human beings, as we are, would have our own inclinations towards one party or towards one religion or towards one culture or other. There are many things that make us who we are. But the obligation on when you become a judge is to look at the cold, hard facts and rule based on that. Some of the pushback that we're seeing currently is the penchant by this president to pack the courts. And only recently, you've seen what happened. And I can't understand why the Chief Justice will be the one recommending, which judges to appoint. The Constitution is clear. That is the president who appoints judges in consultation with the advice of the council. And so the initiative to appoint judges must come from the president and submitted to the Judicial Council. It brings it back with advice to the president, and the president forwards it to Parliament. That is the procedure. It is very rare that this time the recommendation comes from the Chief Justice to the president. And even the issue of capping the number of judges. The Constitutional Review Committee recommended that we cap Supreme Court judges at 15. And so the issue of capping the Supreme Court is not for the Chief Justice to say. We will resurrect the Constitutional Review process when I become president. And when we do that, we will put it to the Ghanaian people whether we should retain the 15, whether we should reduce it, or whether we should increase it. And so I think that should be the Chief Justice saying that we should increase and cap at 15. And even when she says, and cap at 20, and even when she says cap at 20, she has already recommended the 5 that will cap the 20.
Thank you.
And even bring it to 21. Because if you add that 5, it will go to 21. And so I think that we must, as much as possible, have the discretion. The president of this country has a lot of discretionary powers. But that discretionary power must be exercised with responsibility. and make sure that when you are appointing people onto the judiciary, which has security of tenure until they reach 65 or 70 or whatever age is recommended, you cannot remove them unless for state reason. And so in appointing people to such powerful positions where they are the arbiter of whatever happens in this country, we must make sure that we use a criteria of fair-minded people who can put their prejudices aside and be able to judge fairly, because they are the last resort when disputes occur. And so I think that that is the... I was speaking in Elubo when I made the statement that I made. And that statement was in 2016. And it was made to justify why I deserved a second term in office. And I believe that at that time we had made significant steps in terms of stabilizing the economy, in terms of infrastructure development. We had brought the Echuabo gas processing plant on stream. We had been faced with a crippling energy crisis. We had turned it around by 2016. We had stabilized the power situation. We had worked hard to bring 2 new oil blocks on stream, which increased the volumes of our oil production and the value of our production. We had introduced a new Energy Sector Levy Act, which today is bringing in almost 9 billion cedis a year. And so there were several things that we had done. We had established a new port at Tema. We had built a new Terminal 3 at our airport. We had expanded the Takrady port. We had expanded educational infrastructure. We had expanded health infrastructure with district hospitals and regional hospitals. We had expanded access to electricity and water. We had built new markets in many places so that we could improve trade and commerce. And so on that basis, I wanted another term to be able to continue and consolidate what I had done. And that's why I made the statement that I did. But this time, I come back to the job with experience. And I'm going to hit the ground running. And so even though 4 years is short, I believe that in 4 years, we can reset our country. And there are objectives that one wants to achieve. And I say that in 4 years, we can establish a strong fight against corruption. It is possible for a president to do that. I believe that in 4 years, we can begin carrying out constitutional reforms and reviewing our constitution. And that is an objective that I believe I will put myself to and we can achieve in 4 years. In 4 years, we can begin to turn around our economic fortunes and stabilize the economy. I don't say that it will become a land of prosperity, but at least we'll turn around the decline, stabilize the economy, and put it back onto a path of growth. In 4 years, I believe that we can ameliorate and alleviate a lot of the hardship our people are facing currently. Because in stabilizing the economy and stabilizing the currency, we can reduce inflation and reduce some of the hardship that our people are facing. I believe that in 4 years, we can improve our infrastructure. If we implement the big push, we want to put $10 billion over 5 years in infrastructure development. It will include roads, it will include bridges, it will include the essential infrastructure that will make our country run. And I believe that in 4 years, with the implementation of a 24-hour economic policy, we can begin to create more jobs for our people. And so, yes, I think 4 years for the reset objectives that I have mentioned, one can create a turnaround and create a platform for resetting our country and giving it the opportunity to take off. Currently, the prosecution of the Men's Gold chief executive is ongoing, but I think that it should go beyond the investigation. I don't know how far they've gone with identifying the assets of Men's Gold and identifying the holdings, validating the holdings that people had. It is only when you've done that and you know what the quantum involved in that you can make promises and assurances of how to alleviate the suffering of Ghanaians. A lot of people really suffered under this men's gold, and many of our public servants and others who were enticed to put their monies in have suffered because of what has happened. And so when we come, we'll accelerate the prosecution of the person involved, but we'll also go one step further to look at what assets are recoverable and see what the quantum of investments that were made. Some people talk about some amounts of money, but I don't have that validation. It's until we have that validation that we can make an assurance that some restitution can be made. I'm aware of the case in court, and I don't want to comment on it in order that I'm not in contempt of court. But I would say that the security services are different from the public services. And that is why the head of the security services is called the Commander-in-Chief. Security rules and ethics are different from what we have in the public services. And so if you are a Commander-in-Chief and you cannot even change your guard, then change the Commander-in-Chief title. And so, without prejudicing what is going on in courts, let's see what the courts say. But I do believe that we should be able, if you ask me, I do believe that we should be able to put the right people in the right places at any time in order to ensure the safety of our republic. If you do happen to have a security chief who is not effective, and because we pass a judgment that the president cannot touch him, it affects the safety of the citizens. And when it comes to safety of the citizens, it is something that we must take seriously. If a public servant makes a mistake, the consequences are not immediate. But if a security chief makes a mistake and we lose a life or people suffer harm, the consequences are irreversible. And so we must look at everything that goes with it. But let's leave it to the wisdom of the courts to make a decision, and then we'll decide how we all go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I can see the 2019 Journalist of the Year, Samson Ladi Ayinene here. Go to, no. That side. He's in a red and black smoke. My Fulani brother, Umaru Sanda, you are next.
I'm Regional Balance.
Regional Balance. Paka Wilson, Ashanti Region, I'll come there. Then the sports journalists are here. Sadiq Adams, you're still here. Michael Utieje, Pakwesi Asare, I'm coming to you. And His Excellency has told me that you'll be extending the time, so don't worry. Senior, the floor is yours.
It's refreshing to hear about what could be done about corruption. And Mr. President, when you were voted out, I encountered many civil society leaders who said the corruption was endemic, and extending the time of the NDC would mean the corruption will get worse. I hear the same civil society leaders repeat the same thing, that at least one benefit we can get as a country is not to keep a government in for 8 years because the corruption will get bad. I don't believe that we must get to elections before we can get what we deserve. I believe citizens' power ought to be exercised without the kind of repression we see with the police today, so that a young man, a PhD, Oliver Bakavormawo, is facing prosecution, staging a coup on Facebook. That ridiculous thing. I don't know if you will instruct your Attorney General to file a nolle prosequi to stop that nonsense. Now, you kept repeating reset, reset, reset. I believe it must be a very important word to you. In Kenya today, there is a reset. and the citizens are forcing it. 47 corporations, SOEs, are being dissolved. 50% of the president's advisors are losing their jobs. My question to you is, 8 people were killed in elections in 2020. We are 4 years down the line. Those lives must matter. Over 200 people in Ashaiman were brutalized by the army, and I wrote about it as state-sponsored terrorism against them. 180 of them were arrested by the military, manhandled and released without anything. As we speak, nothing has happened. What have you done as the opposition leader about these things?
Thank you.
What will you do about these situations?
Thank you very much. You see, I've given you a lot of time. So when I come on Newsfile, kindly return the favor. Umaru Zanda.
Thank you, Sami. Good evening, Mr. President. My question is, we are at the Kempinski Hotel. A few meters from here, there's a hole that has been described variously as the world's most expensive hole. My question is, when or if you become president, will you cover that hole, complete the hole, or convert the hole? That's my question to you. And just across the street from that hole is the Office of Special Prosecutor. What's your plan with the OSP? Thank you so much.
For this round, I'm going to stay here for a while. I see Yatiti at the back. So let's go for a woman.
Good evening, Mekachi. And Your Excellency, my question, Mame, with all permission.
Thank you.
Abandoned projects. Mentia said the entire buying be about person starting a day. Near the taxpayers' money, Akobobo Singer. No project needs to one up. Look at Sagleme. E-blocks, Basa. At the end of the day, a car ya dear IMF no. Yes, Bosiana, ya bona, ya project SCC wa. Yentimum completing a dear druha. Eti me pacho Your Excellency, abandoned project. Wo big push, Also wo by starting for. And now the war on obey. And our first so port. Yes, you have taxi beer, sebe, nyansenim. And a Toyota Viz, unkita 70 to 80,000 with mentor. I don't know why we are here. Intimate patro, dear, now obey because ye bre.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Alaska, Ahoto FM. Alaska. I'm coming to you. I'm staying here for a while. From here, I'll be coming. I see Samuel Wonto, Kwame Menka, Erica Hiano, Bernard Avile. I know he has a question. He has a laptop in front of him.
Right. Thank you very much. My name is Alaska the Don with Ahuto FM. Mr. President, my question has to do with our universities. Most of the times, we normally talk about free SHS without talking about the tertiary institutions, especially the universities. But there are a lot of challenges and problems there. My question is, what are you doing when you are voted for as a president of this country with regards to problems going on at the tertiary institutions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've taken a lot. Okay, Benjamin Akakpo. I see you at the back. Benjamin Akakpo of Joy News.
Thank you very much. I have one question in 2 parts. Your Excellency, you spoke about the Tema oil refinery in May. You made mention of the fact that you would revamp the Tema oil refinery and that some of its problems are actually because it's a state-owned enterprise. I want to know what exactly is the plan. I feel the Tema oil refinery is a blot on our national conscience. What exactly is the plan? And feeding into that, you spoke about reliable internet. The last I recall, we had GhanaSat 1 launched in 2017, decommissioned in 2019. But if you paid attention to the recent internet shutdown and the concomitant effects, you would realize that we are susceptible to some of these challenges. Is your administration going to consider low Earth orbit satellite technology to ensure that we can have internet stability? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before I move here, those of you here who still have questions, can I see you by hand? Okay, do me a favor. Is it okay to stand this way? Yes. Can you stand in the aisle for me so that I know that you are the ones left? Once we do you, we know we are done with here. No, if you can come and stand this way. Yes, in the aisle. Just for a few minutes. Yes. Okay. Okay, you go back to your seats. I think the number is huge. I underestimated it. The number is huge. So you sit for a while. I'll come back. Let's go to Parker Wilson from Ashanti Regional.
Thank you very much, Sammy.
Yes.
In fact, thank you for recognizing the importance of regional balance. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, you spoke a lot about how you're going to deal with corruption when, of course, in your next government. But then your critics say you are only flexing muscles with the wind, because as an individual, you've been accused of your flirtation with the Airbus scandal.
Okay.
I want to know how you would respond to your critics when they say that your corruption activities led to the Airbus scandal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take one last one, and that will bring the total to 7. Okay, another person from Ashanti Region, Ofori from Mercury FM. Ashanti Region.
Thank you very much, Sammy. Your Excellency, my name is Oforiacha. I work with... Please, I'm the innocent one. I'm not the notorious one. Don't be scared at all. I'm not the notorious one. Please, I can assure you that everybody is in safe hands. I'm not the notorious one.
All right, we are all ears.
Okay. I work with a Class Media Group, specifically Kumasi FM and Adesha FM in Kumasi. Your Excellency, in some times past, a member of this government died, and in his will, it became known that he had devised a plot of land in Achimota Forest for a relative, as if that was not enough. Now, there is a problem between the organized labor and government in respect of state hotels which are on the verge of being given to a cabinet minister. This week, a minister of state did tell Parliament that an amount of 399 Ghanaian cedis had been spent on the pit called the National Cathedral, at a time that what is seen and felt on the faces of the Ghanaian youth are homelessness, hopelessness, and joblessness. My question is that, when you are elected into office, what will you do to, 1, stop the reckless and irrelevant state capture by government officials, and also 2, to restore confidence in the faces of the Ghanaian youth? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been too much politics, so I'll take Sadiq Adams. I know his question will be on sports. And His Excellency says he will be crisp with the answers for this round, so that's why I'm taking more. Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and good evening, Mr. His Excellency, the former president. My question is, Sami said, on sports. As a nation that prides itself as a sports nation, we currently do not have any world-class or international Category A stadium in the whole of Ghana, despite millions of dollars sunk as creating infrastructure for the sports. What is Mr. President's vision in getting the best of infrastructure to unearth talent, and to tie that in with the 24-hour economy? We travel around and see that sports is a very massive part of nightlife in countries, even in Africa, but Ghanaian sports is designed that after 6 p.m. we all go back to sleep because of the lack of facilities and other amenities to enhance the creation of jobs in the night for sports. What is, or how is the 24-hour economy designed I've heard from our great trade business. How will that capture and affect sports so that we have around the clock sports development and enhancement in the country? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll just add a few things to what I said about free SHS. One of the objectives we would set ourselves in terms of looking at the implementation again will be to allocate dedicated funding for free SHS. If we agree that education is the most important driver of prosperity and growth, then we must be prepared to identify and earmark funds for it. We already have GET Fund, which goes into infrastructure, but we must find dedicated funding to be able to implement the free SHS seamlessly. Also, in addition to the question I answered in terms of 4 years, I have heard somebody say that 4 years, if somebody has 8 years, he'll be more responsible and accountable. And if somebody has 4 years, he will not be accountable. I mean, it's the most illogical statement I ever heard. Meanwhile, the same person said 4 more for Nana. And so, if you follow that logic, it means that no president deserves a second term. That's what the person is saying. So even your 8 years you are talking about, it means when you win and you want re-election, you're not going to be accountable. And so let's, put that illogical thinking aside and look forward. The first was about the prosecution of the laptop coup. In regards to our colleague Bakavomao. And I do think that I don't want to be in contempt of law, but I can say on authority that I don't think that prosecution was necessary. And so let me just keep it like that so that I don't get cited for contempt. I think that prosecution was unnecessary. And it was an overreaction by the government. With regards to what is happening in Kenya, I don't think that we have to wait for the backlash of what the youth did in Kenya for us to do the things that we have to do. And that's why I started talking. I said, look, the time has come for us to act and that it can't be business as usual. The Kenyan youth have sent a signal to the whole of Africa that they will push back if the leaders don't do the right thing. And so definitely I'm signaling that it will not be business as usual in our new administration. We'll cut out waste, we'll cut out opulence, we'll bring a code of conduct for public sector, public appointees, especially political appointees, in how they behave, in terms of their modesty, in terms of their humility. Your appointment to that office is an opportunity to serve. It's not an opportunity to lord it over the people. And so our political appointees and public office holders must change their attitudes. And so that is what we're going to insist on, that people that we appoint are modest people, they are humble, they will open up to the people, and they'll do the things that will make the lives of our young people better. And so we're going to hold them to a higher criteria of service than people have been held to in the past. And that's why I say if you agree to serve, you must serve and not have other side businesses and do other things. You must not go and buy state property. Anybody serving in my government will not be allowed to buy a state asset. Nobody serving in my government will buy a state asset. Vehicles or cars or buildings or land or anything, nobody serving in our government will be allowed to buy a state asset. With regards to the deaths, I have the same opinion as you. 8 of our citizens died for no reason. And our president has not even extended any recognition of what had happened. And no attempt has been made to investigate. I have said in several places that we'll investigate what happened and find out those culpable for those deaths. And aside from that, we'll compensate the families adequately on the loss of their loved ones. And it's not only the deaths during the election. You mentioned there are shaman brutalities. It shouldn't have happened. I mean, a soldier was killed, very unfortunate, by a group of armed robbers. And because of that, a whole community was subject to brutalization. I don't think things like that, should happen in the 21st century. And so I put out a statement when it happened, condoling with the victims, and also asking the military to exercise patience. I believe that the military work in a very difficult environment. They are responsible for our safety and security. But at the same time, they should recognize that the money the taxpayers pay that put them in that uniform and give them those instruments are to protect the citizens and are not supposed to be used to brutalize the citizens. And so we need to see how we deal with that. Ayawasu West Wogon, a whole commission of inquiry was set up. Government has with impunity refused to implement the recommendations of the committee. Only recently I visited one of them. He was a footballer. He is unable to go back to work or do anything because of the infirmity in his leg. And so I went and presented a freezer, a flat screen TV, and 5,000 cedis to him in order to help him keep going. And I believe that people like that should be adequately compensated so that they can live their lives again. I am a Christian and I belong to the Assemblies of God Church. Ordinarily, building a house of God is something that we all do. I contributed monies in my local Assemblies of God branch to build our church. And it's created an environment for us to praise and worship our God. But I don't condone stealing in the name of God. And that is what has happened in the case of this National Cathedral. It is instructive that members of the Board of Trustees, some of the members of the Board of Trustees have resigned, and they have called for a forensic audit of the National Cathedral. I'm not saying it. Members on the board believe that fraud has been perpetrated against the people of Ghana, and they are calling for a forensic audit. At the time this National Cathedral came up, it was somebody's personal commitment to God. And we are sure that public funds were not going to be used for the National Cathedral. Unfortunately, we hear that 300 and something million has gone into it. Where did those payments go? Were they justified? Who did they go to? These are all things that we have to unravel. And I think that that is the first thing we do before we even decide what to do with that huge pit. And so first, let's investigate and do a forensic audit. And if people have, illegally and unlawfully taking the monies of the people of Ghana, they must be made to refund those monies. And so that's the first thing I'll do with regards to the cathedral. Yeah, Titi Medase. I'm saying, question I will say, no, idea may you know, will be baby. Mr. Maker say, idea, say a buying a ba na a shassie and in Puntunjuma, will be baby, it be a market and a school and a hospital. We will say a buying for bar. Na a trace almost drink say almost discussion credit no ever call a binder than in chain. Into no more trouble. Na omanka somwa ko share omode ase. Na meka se nyame ya adom ne ba. Sika ye wo ye de behwe saa empuntunjuma ne bebre aka. A trace ye twegu na ye de ye sika hyemu ne etimi ewie saa enjuma no. Asa ne ya sha ase ene foforo. And to make a set district, be a inventory of all projects. Just say, aban eko ni na omoja egu ho. Na every year budget a yebe yi sika egu nchen just say yedi be wie sen dwuma no into 4 years mewa ban mu a meye president no afibia yedi sika beto ho se ne be ya every district in dwuma ewo ho a just say ye ja atun remu no yedi sika no ebeto aso na ye wie asane a sha ase ne foforo because woko be bibria classroom block yen wie obehu na assembly aka say oh ye sha ase ne classroom block foforo anka sika ye wono yemfa wie na yen wie no asane a sha ase ene foforo enti ano me no ye adwen say abandoned projects I was here na ye na okaka ho any taxes and levies ampa ohwe ade ba ko ama Ghana kane na yese ye favorite destination for investment and it say na your taxes ne levies e wo form kakra and so afen so de say senya aban ama your economy no ahwe ase no IMF program a omoko mu no IMF akachiro mo say yeto a yeje anasa revenue a ye nya no e wo se ye pagya ekodru 24%. Kane near 15%. Taxes are almost up to yesui. A pagya ya about 17 point something percent. And so almost by 2028, I will see it drew 24%. In the chest, Omunya ye, sa taxes now de gue so no. Enya endru pempenswa Yabeka say omoye. Entina na person omode VAT to electricity. So that was one of the reasons. And so yes, at you se mo ekotia ya. Anka by now electricity bill bia anka VAT edaso. Yenkwani oman a ewo wiase ha nyina a echese yare aba eko a yeji yeto efa sa yare no COVID levy. COVID aba eko China bibia COVID efrimpo yen ji omo COVID levy. Nso Ghana kwani eje COVID levy. Enti sa nyoma no wo hwe emissions tax any sa taxes ni na eyeto a aban ede to ye so